And welcome to the Factor Uncensored. Thank you for joining us tonight. The big story is the historic indictment of former President Donald Trump. A Manhattan grand jury made it official Thursday, issuing 30 criminal charges for allegedly paying hush money to porn star Stormy Daniels. He is now the first former president in U.S. history to face criminal charges. There are a lot of questions about this case, including how these charges could affect his re-election campaign. Our guests are here tonight. Our guests are here on the Factor Uncensored tonight to talk about this incredible story, former President Donald Trump being indicted out of New York City. Dallas Jones, let's bring you into this conversation. First of all, were you shocked that it came as soon as it came? Because there were reports coming out of New York that the actual grand jury would take a month's break and then come back. But then out of nowhere, we have an indictment.
Yeah, I was definitely shocked to see it come down. I thought it would have been a little bit more time taken to deliberate over this. It's a huge deal for the country. It's historical for the first time that a sitting or former president has been criminally charged. And so, while I may not be the greatest fan of Donald Trump's policies at all, I think it's unfortunate that it's come to this point in American history that we're watching this unfold.
Dr. David Branham, UHD, your thoughts on this indictment coming down and the indictment itself?
There's a lot of politics involved here. First, this happened 7 years ago. It's very iffy whether or not it's a crime. Clearly, he paid off Stormy Daniels so that she would be quiet about their relationship. But that is not against the law. So what is against the law is yet to be seen. Apparently, the Manhattan District Attorney thinks they have something on him. But in reality, this is something that I don't think is going to hurt Donald Trump going forward as far as his presidential aspirations go. Matter of fact, I think it'll help him. He's got a base that will do anything for him. And so I think as far as getting the Republican nomination, he's a clear favorite right now to get that. And I believe the Democrats want him to get the Democratic nomination. Joe Biden has a lot better chance against Donald Trump than he does against Ron DeSantis, for instance. So I'm not surprised that this has come down. I think it's clearly a win for the Democrats somewhat as far as getting the nominee they want. It's not going to hurt Donald Trump. The one person I think it does hurt is Ron DeSantis.
All right. Dr. Dietrich von Biedenfeld, University of Houston downtown, your thoughts on the indictment?
It's expected. I mean, we've seen a Democratic candidate or elected official in this position since 42. So a little bit longer than any of us have been alive on the call. And overall, we've seen the transition of hyperpartisanship and nepotism creating compounding really the challenges of governance. And so this objectivity, the credibility of these offices, the neutrality is going out of the window. We know that this district attorney follows a district attorney who did not pursue these charges over the 7 years that they've been lingering. And we had several of his staff members resign because he wasn't pursuing them actively enough. So why now? And the only answer that I can see is political and partisanship. So it's expected, but where this goes as far as criminality, we spent millions of dollars in the prosecution of former President Bill Clinton. And guess what? He finished out his second term and he's a hero now. So many people credit him with a lot of strength in the economy. And there may be things in our national security that people now credit Trump with, particularly with the doubling down of attacks. You're going to see a double down of the defense.
Dallas, do you think there is more there than what we're hearing in just the hush money? Many people are speculating it could be much more in this indictment, in this case. It is currently sealed and not open for public review as of yet. Do you think there could be more there?
Well, I mean, what we're understanding is that there are over 30 counts, alleged pending charges in this particular indictment. And, one the district attorney does have the ability to pursue these types of charges, whether the predecessor did or did not. The reality of it is that this indictment came from a grand jury. It's fascinating to me that we often, want to question the criminal justice system when it's applied. Do the wealthy and the powerful not have to be judged by the same system and the same laws as the poor? And so the reality is, it was a grand jury of his peers, as decided by our justice system, that have decided that there were over 30 charges that should be rendered in this indictment. Whether or not they stick, that is why we are based on the foundation of justice for all. So either he's innocent or he's guilty, and the justice system will determine that. But I'm, as I listen to, not necessarily the two gentlemen that I'm talking with now, but as I listen to a lot of folks, that support Donald Trump, talk about the partisanship and those things. This has been going on since the beginning of our democracy. And so at the end of the day, elections do decide who controls what office, and that person elected by the people decides how they render out their duty. And that's what's happening before us today.
I agree with Dallas, but I will interject. We had the pick-a-pal system here in Texas that we recently got rid of to move it more like petite juries. And a lot of people don't understand that difference between grand and petite juries. And I served as vice foreperson of a grand jury for 6 months and got to see where the prosecutor really does have quite a bit of prosecutorial discretion in what they bring to the grand jury, particularly if that grand jury doesn't consist of lawyers. There were questions that I was able to ask that other people didn't know they could ask, right? Jury nullification, these complex terms where the average person doesn't even realize that they can say, actually, I don't agree with any of this. I'm going to no-bill this, right? The prosecutor really does guide this process. And I agree that no one should be above the law, but I also see where the prosecutor does have wide leverage and discretion in pushing certain evidence before the grand jury. And if that grand jury doesn't have the training or knowledge pre-existing, we do see a lot of favoritism for those clients who are in the political friend zone of the district attorneys of whatever area that is.
So what's next? Could we see a former president in handcuffs? Our analyst answers those questions on the other side of the break. Could we continue the discussion about the indictment of former President Donald Trump? According to reports, his arraignment is set for this Tuesday. My guests explain what his actual arrest may look like. Really quick, as we move ahead to next week, what will we see? What will that look like when the president or former president Donald Trump has to turn himself in? Dr. David Branham, you're the political specialist here, scholar. What will that look like? And are we prepared to see that?
I think it'll be very peaceful. I don't think you're going to see him in handcuffs or anything like that. I think he'll turn himself in. I think it'll be widely covered, but I don't think you're going to see him treated like a criminal per se. So I think the process will go very smoothly in doing this. And also remember that he has special Secret Service protection as a former president, and he's a presidential candidate. His candidacy for president is not going to be affected by this. The Constitution allows him to go on with his campaign. It allows him to run for president, even if he's indicted, even if he's actually convicted. Constitutionally, he can do that. So this is, as far as his presidential campaign goes, that's not going to stop. I think you'll see him out on the campaign trail very quickly. This will just be a blip on the screen, and it'll be a story throughout the campaign.
Guys, do you think we will hear or see a response from many of his supporters, which he's indicated they would be angry about this? But how angry will they get? Will we see violence in this country as a result of this?
Well, I hope not, and I don't anticipate. I personally don't anticipate that type of response. I think there's been a build up to this. I think any type of violence that would ensue would be very bad for Donald Trump. I think it would be very bad for his candidacy for re-election. I think it would take us back to a place reminiscent of the January 6th insurrection. And so I think it would behoove his supporters to see it as you described it, as a blip in his pathway back to the White House and continue forward with their message and their support of their candidate.
Dr. Von Biedenfeld, is there a path forward after this type of indictment? Many people are saying, well, this will only help him. How?
Well, it definitely invigorates his base, right? It forces them to reassert that their prior decisions were right, regardless of any new facts or evidence. People don't like to admit, hey, I made a mistake. So at the end of the day, we looked at Bill Clinton saying, moving himself into perjury because he just didn't want to say, hey, I messed up. And so this is very common. And with regard to Trump's responses, as long as he's keeping the tweets pretty calming, I don't think we would see another January 6th. We may have isolated incidents of supporters, but the path forward is for the grand jury in its sole role of determining probable cause to shift this to an actual jury that determines guilt or innocence, and then for the president to acknowledge the justice system, to accept it. But again, his supporters, and we've seen this trend with President Trump, the idea is to, on one hand, accept in one circle, and in the other hand, sort of incite in another.
American people are going to look at this, see it as one more example of the criminalization of politics in this country.
I put out a statement last night about the indictment of Donald Trump, and that statement was karma. You know, the wheels of justice takes a long time, but the great thing about it is that justice is always right on time, and it's such a godsend.
Welcome back to The Factor Uncensored. You just heard from Dr. Yusuf Salaam, one of the members of the exonerated five, and former Vice President Mike Pence. Like many Americans, they have different opinions on the indictment of former President Trump. According to my guest, it doesn't matter where you stand, the criminal charges aren't a good look for the country as a whole.
It would behoove him to avoid another January 6th. January 6th did not help Donald Trump. He may have in his mind that, it rallied my supporters. But the majority of the country did not like what they saw on January 6th for good reason. So he should make sure, in the best ability he has, to make sure that that doesn't happen again.
And of course, guys, we keep hearing people say this is not good for the country. What does that mean? And any of you can jump in there.
Well, I think what it does is it paints a negative picture of the American presidency itself to the rest of the world, and so it presents a destabilization in my mind of what it has meant to serve in the highest office in the land. God forbid that he's actually convicted of these crimes, and what that looks like next. It is a staunch change from what we've seen, and it certainly does not send a good picture for our role in the global community.
And Dr. Branham and Dr. Von Biedenfeld, let me get your closing comments here. When they say this is bad for the country, your assessment of what that means.
Well, bad for the country it depends on the shoes you walk in. If you're a Democrat, you say it's bad for the country because we had a former president who's put the law aside and so forth. If you're a Republican, you say it's bad for the country because the law has been politicized and we have people in power who are abusing that power. So I think the reason why it's really bad for the country is because everybody has such a strong opinion here that's negative. That's the biggest issue to me.
Definitely tarnishes the office and our reputation abroad. When we think about the qualitative aspects of diplomacy and negotiation, anything that undermines the power of the office of the presidency doesn't bode well for negotiating peace in Ukraine, negotiating trade deals with China, and so forth. So I think overall, this shows us to be weak, and it shows us not to be united, right? That old song, "Go and Lay Your Hand on a Pittsburgh Steelers fan," and you're going to find they understand. You think of those Charlie Daniels lyrics, and you say, what happened to the country where we can't disagree without being disagreeable? And so it really does bode negatively for our public policy and for the trust that the next generation has, and then that voter participation related to it. at least as educators, we're definitely always trying to get our young people to participate. And if they're like, this doesn't matter, this is a game, and people are childish at this age and income level, it's not great for our future.
All right, gentlemen, thank you for joining us, and we'll just have to wait and see what happens next week. Thank you all for joining us tonight on The Factor.